6 months ago, the world stood on the edge of a disaster that many feared could spiral into a regional catastrophe. Today, the missiles have stopped. The oil tankers are preparing to move again. And one of the most dangerous conflicts in recent history may finally be coming to an end. Iran and the United States have reportedly agreed to a framework that could formally end months of fighting, reopen the Strait of Hormuz, and remove restrictions that have disrupted global energy markets. If finalized, the agreement could reshape the balance of power across the Middle East and influence the global economy for years to come. But before we look at what comes next, we need to understand how the world got here. The crisis did not begin with missiles. It began with economic collapse. As inflation surged and the national currency weakened, protests spread across Iran. Demonstrations appeared in city after city. The government's response was harsh, and the unrest quickly evolved into a much larger crisis. Then, everything changed. The United States openly signaled support for anti-government protesters, warning that further violence against civilians could trigger a severe response. Soon after, coordinated military strikes targeted Iranian air defenses, military infrastructure, command centers, and strategic facilities. The conflict had officially begun. The first weeks were devastating. Casualties mounted. Critical military leaders were lost. Strategic facilities were damaged. Iran suddenly found itself under enormous pressure and facing one of the greatest challenges in its modern history. But Iran was not willing to absorb the attacks without responding. Using ballistic missiles and drones, it expanded the battlefield across the region. Military bases, energy infrastructure, and strategic targets came under fire. The war was no longer confined to one country. It was becoming a regional crisis. Then came the turning point, the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most important energy routes on Earth. When disruptions affected shipping through the strait, the consequences were felt far beyond the Middle East. Energy prices surged. Markets reacted. Governments grew increasingly concerned. The conflict was no longer just a military confrontation. It had become a global economic threat. After months of fighting, both sides were facing growing pressure. The battlefield had reached a stalemate. The economic costs were rising, and international mediators began pushing for a diplomatic solution. That effort eventually produced a proposed agreement. According to reports, the framework includes a permanent ceasefire across multiple fronts, the gradual removal of maritime restrictions, the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, and renewed commitments regarding Iran's nuclear program. In exchange, Iran would receive significant economic relief, including the suspension of key sanctions, access to previously restricted assets, and large-scale reconstruction support. For Washington, the agreement offers something equally valuable: lower energy prices, reduced regional instability, and a chance to step away from an increasingly expensive conflict. But the story does not end here, because not everyone appears satisfied. One of the biggest questions surrounding the agreement is whether all regional actors will support it in practice. Any new escalation, any unexpected military action, or any political disagreement could place the entire deal at risk before it is fully implemented. That is why the coming weeks may be even more important than the war itself. The fighting may be ending, but history has shown that peace agreements often face their greatest test after the signatures are written. For now, the world is watching. Oil markets are watching. Governments are watching. And millions of people are hoping that this agreement marks the beginning of something rare in modern geopolitics. Not another pause in the conflict, but a genuine and lasting peace.